Hello and welcome to the Million Dollar Message. This is your Fearless Friday message with Kali Brigham, calling from beautiful Pensacola Beach, Florida. This past week in my socials, in my trainings with my team, there has been a story that has just really stuck with me. And sometimes you hear something and it just kind of goes in one ear, out the other. Well, this one has stayed with me. So if you're on my team, sorry, I know you've heard this a lot, but I think it really bears some significance, some pause, some application. So that's where we're going to go today. So there's a legend. 150 years ago in Barcelona, Spain, there were three men. They were sitting amongst the dirt and the mud and the sand, and another gentleman walked up to them, and to the first man he said, "What are you doing?" And the man said, "I'm a bricklayer. I'm making bricks." The second man he walked up to, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm a bricklayer, and I'm building a wall." And to the third man, he walked up to him, and he said, "And what are you doing?" And the third man said, "I'm a bricklayer, and I'm building a cathedral to the Almighty." And for those of you that are familiar with Barcelona, Spain, and this legend, that cathedral is none other than the Sagrada Familia, a basilica so stunning and complex that pictures, videos, they can't capture it. I tried to 2 years ago on the top director trip to Barcelona. If you go back through some of my Facebook memories, you'll see it. And it's an incredible cathedral that the time of day, the perspective, where you're standing, the weather, it never, ever looks the same twice. But the idea behind the story is it's the same work, it's the same place, it's the same tools, it's the same mundane, but a completely different perspective. And, I think some of the neat things as I think about the Sagrada Familia and its architect, its designer, his last name is Gaudi. That is where you get the Gaudi phrase from, because there's a lot going on in this cathedral. I say it's part Dr. Seuss and part Tim Burton. If you see it, it's certainly not anything constructed that you've ever seen before. The construction started in 1882, and now 150 years later, it's still not finished. So that's kind of a visionary, isn't it? And Gaudi himself spent 40 years of his life working on this one project. Somebody asked him once if it bothered him that he would never see it finished, and he said, "My client is not in a hurry." And obviously we know he was referring to God. The final design for it has 18 towers, 12 for the apostles, 4 for the evangelists, 1 for Mary, and the tallest for Jesus. It'll make it the tallest church in the world. And inside, the columns rise like trees in the forest, and the sunlight streams through the stained glass, and the whole interior just looks alive, really, with color and light. And while we were there, the organ was playing, so you have the music as well. And one of the things I think that was so important in Gaudi's life is that he had a very distinct and clear purpose. And because that there's so much nature in this cathedral, it wasn't about pointing people to creation. It was about pointing people towards the Creator. So why am I sharing this story? Why can I not stop thinking about it? Well, it's because you and I are also making bricks. We're laying bricks. We're building things. And of course, ours aren't stone and mortar. Ours are texts and phone calls and coaching and orders and team members and meetings and encouragements and invitations and prayers. And I know that it can feel ordinary and it can feel maybe simple or, as I mentioned earlier, mundane, or does it even matter? But when you take a step back and you shift your perspective and your gaze, you're building something really incredible and really beautiful. So I was thinking, okay, let me going to give you 3 lessons from it and a few little practical applications. So the first one is about your vision and to lift your vision, because the first bricklayer only saw the brick in his hand. And I'm sure that it felt like a job and it felt like work, because that's what it was. And it felt repetitive. And the second saw bigger, right? He sure did. But the third saw the cathedral. So when you look at your work, I think a great thought is not to think of the immediate task, but the bigger story, and the bigger story that God is writing through you. And I remember one way of looking at this is when I was earning my very first top sales director trip. And next Saturday, I'll be leaving for my 16th. 2 of those in there were COVID years, but still, 16th trip. But I'm earning my first trip, and it's to Spain, ironically. Not to Barcelona, but another part of Spain. And it was a beautiful Saturday morning. I was living in Memphis at the time, and I had a morning party in West Memphis, Arkansas, which was, 45 minutes, an hour-ish, across the bridge into Arkansas. And then my second party was where I lovingly call Podunk, Mississippi. And so I was going to cross back on the bridge, back through Tennessee, down through Mississippi, and it was going to be a really long day. It was a gorgeous Saturday. Josh and I were married, no kids, and, worked hard throughout the week. Would have loved to take the day off. Would have loved to just play and have fun. But here I was in the car, driving to West Memphis, Arkansas, driving down to Mississippi. And I just remember sitting in my car as I'm driving, saying to myself, I'm driving to Spain. I'm driving to Spain. I'm driving to Spain. Now, of course, you can't drive to Spain. But what I was telling myself is, this party isn't just a party. This isn't just a way to make a couple $100 on a Saturday morning. This isn't just something to go through the motions for. I am driving to Spain. And that's what I told myself that whole year. I'm calling Spain when I'd make my phone calls. I'm ordering Spain when I'd place an order. Everything was for the bigger vision. And then number 2 is commit to the long game. Gaudi knew that he's not going to finish what he started, but he built it anyways, knowing that generations would continue the work. So you're building something, and not to say that you're not going to reach. We have so many goals and dreams along the way, but what if you're building something that's going to even last longer than that? And your consistency, your daily activity is going to be a foundation for other people, whether that's your family, your children, whether that's other people. I mean, we think about those that started our company and where we are today. Oh my goodness, so thankful for what they did. And then lastly, to build with purpose. Every detail mattered to Gaudi. He believed that beauty itself could draw people to God. And in the same way, your details matter too. How you follow up, how you treat people, how you lead with excellence. It all points to something greater. So what does that look like for us? Well, let me just say, first of all, I had this conversation with my kids on our way to church, and I said, you guys, I think about Braden. I think I've told you guys, he sent out 150 emails so far to colleges around the country for their soccer programs. And I was like, you are a bricklayer, and each of those emails is a brick, but you're building what could be your college experience, which could lead to who knows what after that. You're literally building your future brick by brick, email by email. And we talked about that for school and their schoolwork and their homework and their study and their Maddie putting in her time on the volleyball court and how far she's come. So on a practical level for my kids, I've been talking about that a lot. But even in our Mary Kay business, when you send a text to check in with a customer, it might feel like just another brick, but you never know. That might be the encouragement that they need. That might be a referral that you're going to get from them. When you book your facial or you book your party, it might feel just like an entry into your day book. But it could be a moment that changes everything. I mean, I can think of hundreds of parties and appointments where it was just one more thing, but it led me to somebody else, that led me to somebody else, that led me to somebody else that has built 16 trips. When you follow up, or you follow up on a customer or an order, it can just feel like, one more thing, or it can feel tedious. But you're building trust, and it's the foundation of long-term relationships, and again, more referrals. And you could just keep going on and on and on, right? When you show up consistently, day after day after day, it can feel small, but those bricks stack up into momentum, into influence, into legacy. So my challenge to you today is to ask you, are you just creating bricks? Are you making bricks? Are you laying bricks? Are you just building a wall? Or are you building a cathedral? Because the truth is, you are, even if you haven't seen the finished product yet. And even if some days just feel ordinary, and even if it takes a lifetime. So I want you to lift your eyes up, change your perspective, pick up the next brick, build the next brick, create the next brick with new vision, because you are building something extraordinary today. All right, my friends, have a great, wonderful cathedral building kind of day.